connecting rare advisors to clients with what is really for sale during the pandemic. There is a secret method and a process to duplicating your best clients through professional contrast. Once again, welcome to The Rare Advisor, where we dive deep on the supercharged business model of recurring and repeatable events. My name is Mike Walters. I'm the CEO here at USA Financial, and I am joined once again by Steve Phillips, who is also a member of our executive team. He heads up all of our consulting efforts, better known as Advisor Protocol. And what we really want to chat with you about today is what is really for sale during the pandemic, whether it's you interacting within the industry or more specifically you interacting with prospects and your clients, what is truly for sale during the pandemic? Steve, that's kind of an interesting question. I wonder what your first reaction to that is.
My first reaction, Mike, and great to be with you as always, is what's not for sale during the pandemic. And what have we heard? Hey, market rebounded fantastically from the early days of the pandemic. And still people are like, don't talk to me about returns and products, pricing, performance. What's not for sale in the pandemic is all of the things that have become cliche. That's kind of a bad word, but really the common issues that advisors take to their clients. What is for sale is true consulting and what I like to call the human nature component. And you and I both know we have seen that great strides during the last 6 months of the pandemic. And, when we talk about consulting, it starts with us at USA, from us to our advisors. But what we know is that done properly, that rolls downhill from advisors to their clients, taking a consultative approach. And how many times have we talked about the difference between salesmanship and stewardship? Whether as an advisor, you're trying to sell something or trying to build something. So it's been pretty clear. It's a great question. What is for sale and what's not for sale run hand in hand. And it's not products, pricing, and performance. We're not going to, downplay the performance of those things as planning and relationship building, but there's a big difference afoot in the last 6 months.
Well, prior to the pandemic, we have always said what's truly for sale is the advisor. And the big question that's looming in every prospect or every potential client's mind is, would I trust this person touching my money? And that is just a huge scenario that you have to, or huge, I guess the white elephant in the room, as they say, that you need to be able to get over top of. And we're seeing the same thing happening, but from a different perspective, as we saw right after the financial crisis. So right after the financial crisis, the advisors who thrived were those who stayed in front of their clients, and they took this consultative approach that we're talking about, where it was really about what was important to the customer. Were they on pace for their plan? A lot of times there was, a lot of psychology involved. It was a matter of being there for the customer, having good bedside manner, if you will. And those who lost clients after the crisis, it wasn't necessarily because their performance was bad. That's what everybody wanted to point to, but it was really because they didn't have good bedside manner. They weren't available. They weren't in front of their clients. We're now seeing the exact same thing happening, but from a different perspective in the pandemic. Here with the pandemic, it's about have you gone remote? Have you used tools like what we're using right now to have this conversation? Are you using Zoom? Are you using video conferencing? Are you using other mechanisms to stay in front of your clients at that consultative level, keeping them focused on what's important to them, what's the end goal, and are we on pace? And if there's adjustments that need to be made, that's wonderful. But the real reality is, where has your bedside manner been as an advisor through the thick of things? If you're hunkered down in your bunker and you're not interacting regularly with your clientele, you're probably the advisor who's losing ground right now, as opposed to advisors who are out there embracing the technology, finding new ways to reach out to people during a pandemic, and are staying at that consultative role, regardless of the circumstances, even if they can't come into your office on a face-to-face basis.
Yeah, I love doing these things with you, Mike, because you unpack so many things there. The first thing is the whole trust idea. What's interesting is I watched the the rare video that you did with Matt Eilers, and we're talking about ACE and the appointment process. And Matt was referring early on to what is that all about? It's about building trust. What's crazy is I don't want to say that that's a lost art, but certainly building trust. And it really has less to do with the money. That's kind of what you referred to than all of the whys around financial planning. And so during the pandemic, this whole bedside manner, if, there are some parallels to the crisis of 08, 09, and then there are some places where the parallels don't exist. And one of the things is when the market came back after 08, 09, that was an easy conversation for advisors to have with their clients. Not so this time, as you and I know. Because what was happening in 2020 after the market came back is people were homeschooling kids. They were separated from family members that were ill or sick or worse. People were having job cuts and pay cuts and all these types of things. And so you talk about the bedside manner. My gosh, we call it the human nature component. And here's the other thing. We heard from clients actually that had said they had gone 4 or 5 months without hearing from their advisor. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about, trust, bedside manner. I also think it speaks to the consultative approach, the human nature component. What happened, I think, to a lot of advisors was sort of what you're saying about 08, 09. When advisors sat and looked at what was going on this year and the effect on their clients, they couldn't look back at 08, 09 because there weren't really any human nature component parallels.
Right.
We weren't dealing with sick and dying people and all the things that have happened in our economy and so forth. So the consultative approach that we take at USA is certainly all the things around appointment processes and how Fill the Room has become digital. You're talking about Zoom and communications with clients. Stay in front of your clients, stay connected, but then really add a human nature professional contrast component to it. And this is what we found. It's not rocket science, man. We start talking to clients around the 3 big things of their whys. Family. What's going on with your family? A lot in the last 6 months. What's going on with your occupation?
Right.
And what about your recreational bucket list? Clients felt very deeply connected to their advisors on a personal and emotional level. And as it turns out, we know that that's made a difference when you look at the introductions and so forth that have happened. So the consultative personal approach, us to our advisors, and helping and teaching and mentoring our advisors to translate that to their clients. It's been a huge difference maker. And what we know too, quickly, I'll wrap this up, is that is going to carry us into 21 and way beyond as advisors learn new skills of how to do this, how to communicate this way, and what to communicate.
Oh yeah, we're adding arrows to the quiver all the time right now, and the learning curve that would have taken us a decade or more to get the retiree who's, let's say, age 65, age 70, or even above, to be comfortable having detailed conversations that really matter, that touch home, over a video conference type scenario. It just wasn't there. And now all of a sudden what 2020 has done is it has taken those individuals who unfortunately were oftentimes in isolation. And it was for that reason. They didn't want to lose touch with the kids, with the grandkids, with everybody else. So they learned how to do this stuff. And now it's a huge benefit because as advisors, we've always struggled with how do you deal with the snowbird client when they're gone 6 months of the year? And how do you deal with certain other geographical scenarios? Maybe the adult children who you want to really get a good relationship with, while the whole plan is still intact before certain things trigger based upon death of some of the leaders of the original leaders of the family who were your clients. And so all of these things are so important and so vital, and none of them have anything to really do with product, right? Because like we've said, what's really for sale is you and the trust level that you're creating. But you have a great line, Steve, that I know a lot of the advisors are using right now, where you coach them about the idea that they need to share with their clients, especially in this environment, that if someone's important to you, they're important to me. And that's how the introductions are coming in. So even though you might not be able to run a live prospecting event, if that was something you did on a regular basis in the past, now you have other ways to get in front of people. And that's a great one.
Yeah, no question. And here's the thing too, Mike, that you really have to be consistent and congruent, and before you can communicate those types of things. If you've been a product pusher and a performance pusher for years and years and years, and suddenly you say, oh, hey, you know what? If you have friends and family members that are important to you, understand they're important to us. Well, I've had a relationship with you like you're a salesman for years, and there's a place for that. And we know that some clients respond to that, but now you're going to act like a steward of the relationship and consultant. It's not going to work. It's not going to fly. And so the mentorship that we have with our advisors, as you know, is ongoing. And here's the thing let's boil this down to two things, man. And what you just pointed out. Number one, how are we delivering into the future? And we know we're going to go back in person at some point. That's not gone forever. But we've said to our advisors, you better act like that we're not, and command Zoom and command all those things. And remember to position everything that you do as a service to your best clients. You just mentioned that. Yeah. Hey, we can help you stay connected to kids and grandkids. I just had a conversation yesterday with my daughter in Vermont, which I haven't been able to see for a year because of things that are going on. And we did this and it was wonderful. So how are you communicating? This way.
Right.
Virtual. Actually, we don't like virtual, we like remote, because virtual, we learned from one of our advisors, it's not real. And so we're doing it remote. But maybe more importantly, Mike, is what are you communicating? And you and I can't talk for 20 minutes on that. It's simple. If there's not a human nature component, if there's not a consultative approach to it, if you're not a human being yourself with kids and family and job situations, and in the end, that's why your clients are doing business with you.
Right.
All of the brilliance around financial planning has to do with those three whys: your family, your occupation, and your recreational interest down the road.
Yeah.
So this is what we're going to do for the rest of this year and into next year at USA is condense it down. How are you delivering to your clients, and what are you delivering?
So, Steve, actually, in our last few minutes, I'm glad you brought that up. When you talk about condensing it down, obviously you and I are in conversation on these topics a lot. So I kind of know what you mean when you're talking about condensing things down. But for the advisors who are listening to this, where are the areas that you guys are really concentrating on that create the most value, in these circumstances that you're truly coaching, grabbing them by the hand, kind of pulling them through the process because you need to get them kind of up to speed very, very quickly in this environment?
They're focused on two questions there, Mike, and thanks for asking. Number one, the first thing we always ask advisors is if you could accomplish, not fix something that's broken or whatever, if you could accomplish one thing in the next 6 months, and then we can expand it out 6 months. And then let's look at the whole year of 2021. If you could accomplish one thing that you think would make a difference in your practice, what would that be? And we always surprise advisors on purpose with that because we sort of want it off the top of their head. Like, yeah, this is something I've been thinking about. The second, maybe more important question is this: do your clients fully and completely understand and appreciate everything that you and your firm can provide them over the life of a relationship? Right. That's an amazing question.
Yeah.
What happens then is we take the consultative approach. You're going to tell me, Mike, you know what? This is something I've been thinking about. I want to scale the practice. I got to get better at this. We're ready to sell the thing. Our brand, we need to update our branding, whatever it might be. So that gives us direction, not based on what we think, but what you share with us. More importantly, how many advisors do we know, Mike? And when I think of USA's history for 33 years, how many advisors would tell us, you know what? I started as a tax guy, started as an insurance guy, and I've added all these other services, and yet my clients don't remember.
Yeah.
That's a human nature component. Do they fully and completely understand and appreciate everything you can do? That's where brand and process come into play. And then what we know is, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about this in a later conversation, from those two questions come all of the tentacles of proper consulting.
Right.
And communication to clients, which would lead us back to the two things we just talked about. How are you going to communicate it? And what are you going to communicate?
And the reason going through this process with the protocol group that Steve heads up, the reason that's so important that we found is because the typical client remembers you, kind of pegs you, if you will, based upon how they first met you.
Exactly
So
right.
as you were saying, if you've got this long history and maybe you started out as an insurance agent, or maybe you started out as a med sup person, or maybe you started out as a stock jock, or whatever that is, and now you're a comprehensive financial advisor, unfortunately, some of those older clients, they don't have you pegged as a comprehensive financial advisor unless you've gone back, you've properly coached and trained them and taken them through this process that Protocol has created, that literally the end result is your clients see you the way they need to see you in today's environment. And then that opens up the floodgates for the
Yeah, it's really well said, Mike. And you know what? That's one of what we discovered is the 5 barriers to entry that we really didn't know about. That's when we started interacting with clients. There are barriers to entry. One of them we call the brain box. There's no science to that phrase. We just sort of coined it in that, however, just what you said, however you come to a relationship with a client is how they'll describe you forever.
Right.
But this is the thing advisors have to understand. And this is why the human nature component and proper consulting is so important. Your clients are really tuned in the meeting. They love you. They trust you. It goes so well. It couldn't even be better. And you're thinking they really have a handle on what we do and who we are and all of that. And then they leave.
Right.
And they go back to their lives and they go back to their jobs.
Yeah.
And they don't see you for 6 months, or they don't communicate with you for a month and a half, or whatever it might be. And we're expecting that those things that we talked about in the meeting will stay top of mind. They don't. And you're asking me to remember 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 things that you can do. And I just simply don't.
Yeah.
So there's a method to helping clients fully understand all of that. And in the end too, Mike, I said 2 things. Hey, how are you going to deliver? What are you going to deliver? Well, maybe the third component is that we always make sure that professional contrast exists, so that every time you open your mouth in front of a new prospect, or indeed with your best clients, they recognize, man, that's different. That sounds different. Even I've been with Mike for 16 years and he's doing something new and different and it resonates differently. So that's really the function of consulting. Downhill, us to you as an advisor, and then from you to your clients.
Right. Well, and it's kind of a great way to wrap this up, because everything you just said is exactly why this series is named The Rare Advisor, because there are these recurring and repeatable events that are inside of your business that you might not have even realized existed to begin with. And you said the term a couple of different times. You might not even notice you said it, but you said the word method. There's a method for this. There's a system. There's a process to make this happen. And if you don't know how that works, or you've not experienced this so that you can relay that to your clientele, well, that's a great reason that you'd want to reach out to the Protocol team here at USA Financial. Contact Steve and his gang. They will walk you through the method to make this a reality for you. So thanks so much again for hanging out with us here at The Rare Advisor. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit the like button. And we'll be back again with you soon. Thanks, everyone.